And we're here every Friday. It's absolutely free. You get a certificate for attending at the end. I'll let you know where you can find that. And everything is recorded. So, and this certificate is stamped with American TESOL. So, usually my other host here, my co-host Roscoe, will join us sometimes just to say hi. But we really appreciate everyone coming. We've done over 100 of these, I think, now. This is our second year, so we want to wish you a wonderful, happy holiday. So I'm going to let him sit back, and we're going to talk today about lessons and ideas for using quotes to teach and inspire students. And many of us are going to start a new class or a new semester, and quotes are actually very good for starting the newest semester, and I'll show you why. Some great January lesson ideas here. But there's so much you can do. They're really great for language learners. They inspire students. And that's one of the great things is, hi Kenzie, and it's great because you can inspire students to accomplish learning goals within the year. It's a great way to start them off being inspired, because if they're inspired by you, and they can use these quotes for their everyday life to accomplish goals that way, but they can use it to accomplish goals in your class. Sometimes as a language learner, it's difficult to be motivated to learn a language. So by using quotes, you can motivate them to continue and to follow their dreams and see the bigger picture, especially when using a language. And there's a lot of great language within quotes. You can do things like study conditionals and other types of grammar as well. It's great for concrete nouns versus concrete nouns, connotative versus definitive. So there's so many there's so much grammar and language technical things you can teach as well. But one of the great things is you can begin by using quotes as prompts for their journal writing. And this is what I did with my language learners. My language learners were in high school, and I also had some adults that I did this with. And so every day they would look forward to me writing a new quote on the board, and then they would just they would have about 5 or 10 minutes to really brainstorm what it was. Often I would put things like, do you believe this is true, to come after the quote, like a question. Would you apply this in your life? Do you agree with this? Would you follow this? Do you think it's a good quote? So things that they can really think about. Also, has this ever been the case in your life? And they would really have a lot of free writing that they could do in response to these. You can actually, a great thing to do with quotes is you can have students talk about them together. So in this type of activity, it's sort of like a game. You cut the quotes into strips, okay? And then there's a few things you can do with it. So once you have it in like a little paper strip, let me see if I can find. But you know, you just cut it in little tiny paper strips. And once you have it, the quote, I used to type them out and do this. And then print them up, and they'd be like little tiny scripts. There's many things you can do with it. You can make it into a game where they have to find each other. So one student has a quote, the other student can have, for example, the person who said the quote. So let's say you're reviewing, for example, presidents. See, they had studied presidents all year. Then that's something you could do. Different quotes from presidents. It'd be a great review, especially for an upcoming test or something. If you're studying a book, see, what you could do is the end of each chapter, you could, or even at the end of the book, or midway, it'd be a great review to say which character do you think said this. So one strip of paper you have the quote, the other the character who said it. Or you could say what scene. You could write down the scene that it corresponds to. Or you could write down a goal that it corresponds to. So for example, you could say something like trying to learn how to drive, and then maybe the quote is something like by Ford, obstacles are only those things that you see in the way, or something like that. So something that best matches the situation. And that kind of shows them with also, or context. You can say with this, you could give them different context, and then they can go and match the quote to the context. So there are different things that you can do with that. investigating the context. So what I do with my adult students when I was teaching in Germany, and they really like this with the quotes, there's two ways, there's different things you can do with quotes. The first thing is that you can find different quotes that you like for your students. That might be very good because you know the level, so sometimes quotes can be very difficult. So I chose with my my beginners and my pre-intermediate, in my intermediate classes, I chose quotes, and they were very simple quotes because I wanted them to be able to understand the language. So I had a bunch of these quotes, and then I would take and cut them into strips, and then I would break them in pairs, and then they would work together, and they would have to choose one of the quotes. They would talk about the quotes, the meaning behind the quotes, and then they would take one of the quotes or two, and they would create a dialogue, student A, student B, and they had to create a scene in which they would share that quote with a friend. So sometimes they came up like with maybe their friend was breaking up with someone, and then this was the quote they used. Some put asking for a raise. And so then they would say this after they wrote the dialogue with the quote in there, then they would recite it to the class. And they really enjoyed that, and it showed me they understood the meaning behind the quote. Meaningful events. This is another type of lesson plan. Students list meaningful events in their lives. So maybe their birthday, the uh, first time they went to school, when they graduated. Maybe if you teach adult students, different things in their life. They search for quotes to highlight these events, and then they make something like a scrapbook. So they can make a scrapbook on their own and then just put the quote with the event. So basically they're describing the event, and then they're using the quote as an add-on. There's a great tool for this. Now, you can use Glogster, Vuvox, PhotoPeach, and SlideRocket. All of those are great, fantastic tools. They're like SlideShare tools. And some of them are poster tools. But one of these tools I do want to show you, which is Mixbook. Mixbook is an online scrapbooking tool. So what they can do is they can go online, they upload their pictures, they can put different types of, okay, so they can put different types of emblems and things like that. Like they can, what's going on with my computer here? But they can choose different things. Like for example, they have this football here. They can make it really pretty. They can put cool fonts. They can put stickers on it, and basically it looks like a scrapbook, an online scrapbook. So this is one tool, and then they can put the quote on the side, or it can be like a highlight of that event. So that way they associate the quote with the context, and they have a lot of fun. You can use these at the end of the year. You can use them at the beginning of the year. I like to do this at the end of the year, where my students can have pictures of throughout the year. Especially my high school students, middle school students love doing this because they love to post their pictures up. And then they love to have, like, you sometimes see them with these memoir books or yearbooks, and they have each student sign. Well, this is a great way to have them do it online. You can have quotes to support different goals. So at the beginning, I have my students list several English learning goals. You know, maybe they want to learn English better for work. Maybe they want to answer phone calls. Maybe they want it to travel somewhere. So they have different types of goals, and they can list personal goals as well. Like, for example, maybe they want to lose weight, or maybe they want to read 10 books or something. And then I have the students find quotes to support these goals. Sometimes they'll come up with their own quotes that they found that they like, because a lot of times you'll see that students have quotes they like themselves. And then in pairs, they explain why they chose the quote, why they think that it really inspires them to accomplish the goal. And then they can make something out of it. They can make, for example, a goal collage and vision board. And what this is basically they put pictures representing their goals, and then they also add text that is the quotes for the goal. So this is something that they can see every day. It's actually a great philosophy. A lot of business, you can find articles out there how business leaders and business professionals actually use vision boards. They're called vision boards. And then for students, we call them goal collages. A collage is basically a bunch of different. It's sort of like an artistic project, but mentally, it's really kind of a great thing. You can either post these in the classroom if you do it through poster board. It's great because it's very motivational. The idea is psychologists have found that when people look at a vision board, they actually will accomplish goals. So if they see it every day, it's a reminder of the goal, but it's an inspirational reminder. So you can have them post their language goals up there, representations of that. You can do this online too. Globster is a fantastic tool to be able to make these goal or vision boards. And so this is something that you may want to try. You can have the quotes there, and they can add pictures, they can add music, they can add videos, they can add all kinds of really, really great, fantastic things. So these are definitely things that your students will enjoy, and they can post it in their blog, and have it as reminders every day. They can share it with family and friends, and they can revisit it often. Okay, so sometimes we don't have just quotes from, you can have quotes from different sources. Students can bring in their favorite movie quotes. They can bring it from famous people. Their quotes, famous people say, historical figures, people that are inspiring, like Steve Jobs or maybe Gandhi. So there are quotes from famous musicians, Tupac. Your students will have quotes that they enjoy themselves, and they can get it from different areas, different genres, different pieces of literature and poetry and things like that. But one thing that you may want to do, if you're studying a book, taking quotes from the book is a great way to understand the book. A lot of the teachers now are using something called VoiceThread, and I love VoiceThread. It's absolutely fantastic. Your students go here, they can doodle, they can upload pictures, they can upload videos, they can upload links, and then they get the opportunity to draw on the picture, add text, add voice if they want. They can use the real picture, or they can use different types of avatars or cartoon pictures. They don't have to use their. You can get the whole class to just do one VoiceThread where they share book quotes on VoiceThread. Now, in this particular one, this is from Mice and Men. That's the one they were studying. And what they did was they named the chapter, because a lot of times the book doesn't have chapters. So they had to actually write, in the response, they had to say the chapter, what would be a good name in the chapter they chose. And then they would have to, here you can see he's writing down this quote, and then he talks about the situation the quote comes from. So what happened and things like that. You can get quotes from movies or videos. So sometimes in my classes I would show small movie clips, and we would study the scene and stuff. So a lot of times you can actually find these movie scripts online. And what you can do is you can have your students, while they are listening or watching a movie, and you want them to pay attention to the grammar or things like that, tell them, write down a quote from the movie, okay? So this is something that they can do. They can take video or movie quotes, and then you can go into something like play a movie quotes game. Okay, so maybe if you have part of the quotes from a movie, you can find a lot of movie quotes online. You just Google the movie and put quotes, and then you have them, and then you can print that out and cut it into pieces, and then you can have them do that game, the jigsaw, where they find, guess, who is the speaker who said that. And this could be after a great way to review a movie. But you can also do a movie quotes game where you guess the movie, and that's what they've done here. It's another VoiceThread. I think it's really cool. You can see how many people. This is an entire class and more. So what they did is one person says the movie quote, and then the other person has to guess where it's from. You can even have them Google it, because even the act of Googling a quote is very good for language skills. It really helps them a lot. But one thing you can do is you can actually post in the middle a video clip you show in class, and you can post it on Linowit. Linowit is absolutely fantastic. There is a free app for your Android and also your iDevice, By the way, VoiceThread also you can do, it's free, but you can also do it online as well. You can do it on your iPad and also your iPod. But Linoit comes in all devices, BlackBerry as well. You can post from different places. But it's also web to online and sticky notes. So what you can do is you can put a video that you reviewed in class if you're teaching YouTube or something, and then they can post different quotes on here with Linoit, and they can put the timestamp. They can say at 3:23, and then they describe the quote, what the situation was, what it meant, why the author or the speaker said that, they believe it's true or not. So you can have a whole entire class discussion, and you can have it online, and it's a great way for them to access that again and again. Or you can just do it regular Post-it notes. So let's say you have a class board. Here they drew pictures, so you can have them draw pictures to accompany the quotes in the bottom. They can, guess who and play games. The great thing with sticky notes is that you can always play lots of wonderful games. Each student, you give them a bunch of nice sticky notes. Do it different colors if you can, because it just looks cool. They write down a quote from a book, movie, or based on a theme. So for example, maybe you can go into the classroom, you give them the sticky notes, and you say, today we're going to search, and they can do computer search. Or if you have a bunch of books, they can search through the book. If you bring a bunch of quote books, I've done that before too. So if I've only had one computer in the classroom, I've checked out books from the library, like quote books, and I bring a bunch and I break them in pairs, and then they have those quote books that they can search through. So what you do is you give them each pair or group. You can go ahead and you can have them write down quotes based on a theme. So you can say, our quotes for today are for learning English, or our quotes today are about losing weight or being more healthy for the year. So it's a great way to review January goals, because people make New Year's resolutions. So then they go through and they look through the themes and they pick a few quotes that they put, and then they all post it on the wall. And then you can either take a picture, or you can do this with Linoit. You can even do this online. They can do a Google search for these quotes. There's different databases with these quotes. You can take quotes, use quotes to investigate a famous speech. So there's so many wonderful speeches out there. And so if you're having them listen, for example, you may have had them listen to the elections, and they may have seen like a speech that Obama did. So it's a great way for them to deconstruct the script of the speech, and you can get those speeches online. I'll show you a site in just a little bit. But basically, you have them choose their favorite 3 quotes from the speech, or maybe their one favorite quote. It's up to you. And then they have to explain the meaning, and then the reason why they chose that particular quote. So like for Obama, they can, say what it was in reference to. He was talking about healthcare. That's what he said this quote. But they can do historical figures. I see teachers, the most famous one that I've had teachers do is actually I Have a Dream speech, which is the Martin Luther one. But there's also another one that I used with my students, my adult students, that they found was very inspiring. And this was a Randy Pass speech. So let me go ahead. It's called Achieving Your Childhood Dreams. And we actually went through the transcript and everything of this Randy Pass speech. So let me go ahead and share that with you. I'll put that in the things right here. There you go. You can find a lot of these if you go to AmericanRhetoric.com. Top 100 speeches of all time. They give you the MP3. They let you see the transcript in either PDF or in Flash, so they can choose the quotes from there. But they can also listen, so you can do so many different activities. You can do pre-writing, where you can have them actually, they can listen to part of it, and then you pause it, and then they write down everything they think the topic is and things like that. So there's so many ways that you can use this. You can do during while they're listening. They can go ahead, and so it's a great listening activity as well. And then they take the different quotes that they like from there. You can have them again, choose 1 to 3. And then they explain the meaning and why the different that famous person said that and what they were referring to. Voki.com is absolutely fantastic. They can actually practice their speech, because what they can do at Voki.com is choose different types of people, and then when they choose the character, the famous person, they search for a famous quote that the persons have. And so they can recite the famous quote, and then they can explain the meaning behind the quote. So they can actually have Obama, and they can either record their own voice, or they can do text to speech. So they can type in the quote, and then they can go and they can have, oh, thanks, Laura. They can type in the text, and then it'll say it for them. They can choose an accent, but it's a great way for them to review a quote. Sometimes in class we have them memorize things like, for example, we want them to say things like Declaration of Independence or something. So if they're quoting something like that, Voki is a great way for them to do this as well and have fun with it. So we're going to wrap up pretty soon. But another lesson idea is actually giving the students various topics, like a news story. So you walk into the classroom and you say, we are all news reporters today, and we are going to cover different stories. And so you can give them stories. You can put these stories in strips of paper, or you can put them in a bag, and then you have the students draw, and that's their story. It should be something very simple headlines. For young learners, you can do this. You can say something like, hippo escapes from the zoo, or different things like that. And then they go around, and they can either pretend to be different roles in the class. And the student's job is to collect quotes from sources, because that's what you do as a reporter, right? So that have insight on the topic. So for example, if it's hippo escapes from the zoo, then you can have each student pretend to be somebody from the zoo. Maybe one is a parent. Maybe one is a zookeeper. Maybe one is hippo's mom. You know, if it's young learners, why can't the animals talk themselves? They can each be animals who witnessed hippo escape from the zoo. So you can do this to young learners, or you can make this quite serious, and you can do it with your older students. And what they do is you can give them serious topics, like maybe cafeteria food. That's a good one. How they feel about the environment, recycling, different things locally. And then what the students have to do is they go and they collect quotes from various sources to gain more insight on the topic. And then later they make it into a podcast, or they can make it into a news report. And there is a newspaper generator that you can use for students. It's Fody.com. Let me go ahead and get that for you. But they can actually put that down, just the cover, the title of their story. But one of the things they can do is they can add the quotes in this kind of Fody as well, and it comes out as a newspaper clip. So that's one thing that they can do with it. Or they can use something like AudioBoo and make a podcast. So I'm going to show you a few cool tools to continue things that you can do with quotes. One of them is language garden. You can make a language plant with at language garden. And this is a great tool for language learners. They can manipulate everything here you see. This is showing, these all represent something. The colors represent, for example, a way to look at the grammar structure of quotes. So this is what it looks like. You can make it on your own. So each student chooses a quote. They go to the computer, and then it gives them the color codings. And blue is noun, red is verb, green is adjective, and so on. So they take the quote and they just deconstruct the grammar in it. I do not, and then they're typing this, and they can move it around, and they make it look really pretty, and they can add different different types of clip art to it as well. They can create motivational posters. Now there's a few tools that allow you to create motivational posters. You can see this famous guy here making his motivational poster. Sometimes they call them demotivational posters. But instead they could put their own quote there. So the great tool for that, if you go to bighugelabs.com, motivator.php, they can upload their own. They can upload it from Facebook, or they can upload it from, oh, thank you. They can upload it from Flickr. They can put the quote right in the bottom, the title, the theme of what the quote is. And they will have a blast. My students love doing this, so you will, they especially love doing it with animals. Now, I make rules, well, I tell them ahead of time that to make sure that they don't do it with people in it, that they have to be nice and do it with animals or objects and things. There's a lot of toy characters like Darth Vader and things like that that they can find on Flickr as well. So there's so much for them to play with. And they get very creative with this. DIY.despair.com is another one. It's called demotivational posters. This is actually the one I used with Roscoe, and I didn't put a particular quote with him, but I did have it. Muzi.com has some great quote apps. So there's actually a variety of tools on Muzi.com where the students, they type in their quote and they have different backgrounds to go with it. Now they have so many different apps for quotes. They have where the students type and it makes sounds and it makes this cool video where the quote just comes out. So there's quite a few things that you can do with Muzi. Devolver.com. Now, Devolver, I'm going to warn you, it's great. It does have text. They can do the background. They have music that goes with it. It doesn't really have sound except for the background music. It does show their text. They choose different characters, the way the characters interact, and they'll have fun with it. Your students, maybe some of the characters are not for young learners. So this would be for adults. I would recommend you check it first because some of the characters I saw were wearing clothes that might be very questionable, like bikinis and things like that. So I would say this is for adults. You can do this with college students and things like that. They'll have fun making the movie. It's just not for young learners. Go Animate is a great option, though. Go Animate is really fantastic. You can have them. So you're going back to that lesson idea where you have them decide the context the quote comes out with. So where they wrote their dialogue of where they recited the quote. For example, the friend is trying to lose weight, and maybe they quoted something like I don't know a very inspirational lose weight quote, Eye of the Tiger or something. And then so they created this dialogue. Well, they can go to Go Animate. It's free. They choose their characters. They can even choose favorite characters, famous as well, but I think you have to have educator account for that. So they select the characters. And then after they select the characters, they type in or they record their voice saying the particular line that they had. And they have this conversation where eventually the quote comes out during the conversation. So it's a great way, and they make a video. It's really cool. They'll love it. You can have a Pinterest page. Now, Pinterest is really fantastic because it's very visual. Now, this is my particular Pinterest page. It's different quotes that I use for world changers, inspiration world changers. But you can use this as they're collaborative. You can make it collaborative so your students can go at any time and you can say when you are inspired, when you see a quote, we're having quotes, a collection of